The following conversations are taken from our channel membership exclusive weekly live show that we do on Saturdays from 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time called Members Talk Live. Find out how you can become a member and appear on the show. All of the information is down in the description below, as well as all of the links to the channels of today's guests. Check them out, and I hope to talk with you very soon. Today's topic: why we love movies. And to start us off, we've got DJ from Movie Time Minute in here.
What's
How you
going
doing,
on?
man?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here, man, as always. And I mean, just by looking at your new setup, which when did you set that up, by the way? When did this happen?
This has just been a few days ago. So I was telling you a little bit separately. I had a ring light malfunction, tore up, had to get a new phone. I do everything off my phone, so I had to get a new setup and everything there. That backed everything up, made this ugly. I had to doctor it a little bit, and so here we are.
Perfect, man. Well, you know what? I think it was a blessing in disguise because it looks great. Like
Thank you.
really great. And I can already tell like you're gonna improve it even more. And it's just gonna be like a sick setup. So yeah, awesome, man. I'm happy for you. That's awesome. And does that lightsaber light up? I need to know.
It does. It does. If I can hit the button here.
And it's green, my man. Nice. Green lightsaber is superior to all lightsabers, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, the best have green.
So, like we said, the discussion today is why we love movies. So, I want to talk about that with you, man. I want to dig deep into your brain, into your past, where this came from.
Okay.
So, let's go all the way to the start. Like, do you remember the first movie you ever saw?
Okay. So I'm told the first movie I ever went to in the theater was Rescuers Down Under. I don't remember that. The first theatrical experience I remember was probably IMAX of Mission Impossible 2.
Oh,
I want to think that might have been it. It's one of the first memories I have going to the movies. At home, of course, I watched a lot of Disney growing up. The Jungle Book was my go-to as a small child, and that's kind of my start with movies. I guess mainly Disney, like a lot of kids do.
nice. So, what do you think? You said that the Jungle Book was the one that you really gravitated towards as a kid. How old would you say you were?
I would say three, four, five, somewhere in there. But I would go back and forth between the Jungle Book VHS and the white VHS of Barney's Christmas, Barney the dinosaur.
I
Man,
had it.
I
I
wore
had
that
that.
tape out too.
I totally had that. And Barney the movie with like the rainbow egg thing.
Oh
I
yeah.
I have memories of that for sure. So, what do you think it was about the Jungle Book at that age that
I'm sure
did that
part
for
of
you?
it was music. I'm sure part of it was. I'm really not sure. There's just something about that. The storytelling from that movie just really hit me as a kid, and I think that's probably my first love for movies in general is those Disney movies, those classics like that mom and dad had for me as a kid. I mean, I had that. I had Oliver and Company. You know, some of those little bit that were right before my time, even and further back that I really watched a lot of, and I still watch Disney movies today, probably because of that. Because I never lost a love
Yeah.
for it.
I think those old classic Disney, because like even I watched like those when I was younger too. Like I wasn't always into like the Jungle Book and like Cinderella and Snow White and all those kind of like older ones,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
the ones from like the 90s, like Tarzan, Lion
Okay.
King, Lilo and
Yeah,
well,
I
Lilo and
mean,
Stitch was like
I got those as
2001.
I was growing, but yeah, I think just because we owned the Jungle Book one and Robin Hood, I love that old Robin Hood movie. Some of those, but as the new ones come out, yeah, my sister was huge on the princess stuff, so I watched a lot of that too, just because she was watching it and she's only a year younger than me. So
Nice. And I think that we kind of have like a similar kind of era too, because like I don't know what it was like in your house exactly, but in my house, it was like the VHS that you had is the VHSs that you got. Like I don't
yeah,
remember asking for VHSs. I don't remember people watching probably don't even fully know what VHSs are, some of them, but they were old tapes that you would watch movies on. Big
oh man,
rectangular things, maybe not that big, but big rectangular things. And yeah, I remember like having a bunch of Disney ones, not knowing where they came from, but watching them like endlessly and like going to movie rentals and was that a big thing in your childhood too? Was going to movie rentals when like Blockbuster and
Absolutely.
all that was still around?
I was going to get into that a little bit more when we get into my big love for movies and stuff and how.
All right, we'll save it. We'll save it then. So,
Okay.
so who was it? Because I feel like everyone kind of has someone who was a huge influence for getting you into movies. Like, who was the person that was like introducing you to films, especially when you were younger?
Most of that was probably my dad. My mom had some influence on it too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we were a movie family. I mean, we that was our thing that we did together. We watched movies. So definitely both of my parents, but my dad especially is what got I think my fandom going with a lot of the different things that I'm interested in now. Anyway.
For sure, man. I'm kind of in the same way too. My dad was a big influence for my movie goings and love for movies and stuff. Like kind of like similar to you. Like my family was also big, not so maybe not so much like movie watchers, but like television. Like
Okay.
sitting around the TV watching a show. We would watch movies for sure, like especially on like Sundays after church. My grandparents would come over and the whole family would sit together and watch movies, and that's like really fond memories that I have. And that was kind of like the only thing that we really did all the time. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
um, I definitely relate to that part too. And my dad, like the thing that we bonded on the most was he would take me to movies. Like
Okay.
we every weekend we would go on what we call like man trips, and we would like go to the arcade and then we'd go to the movie or go out for lunch, and then he'd take me to the new latest movie and countless like Friday nights coming home from school, elementary school, and my dad just like, hey, I got tickets to this, and I don't know what the heck it is, but I'm going to the theaters with my dad, and that was always
Yeah.
really cool. So, Jungle Book when you were like really, really young. Do you remember as you got older a movie that you watched that hit you differently than when you would watch? Because like for me, for example, when I was younger, like I remember entertainment being a big
Hmm.
thing for like just having something on and being entertained by it. But when did the shift start to happen for you where it became more than just entertainment? It became something that you were like really fixated and fascinated upon, and you started to think about the, the filmmaking part of movies, I guess would be the question.
Okay. Yeah, that would definitely be the Star Wars prequels. Um, I don't know what it is about them. I know most of them are not great movies, but something about sitting in a theater and seeing those movies on the big screen. First time for me watching Star Wars on the big screen and getting to see that and just seeing the special effects, seeing the fights, hearing the music, and actually paying attention to the music for the first time. I think of really hearing score as far as music goes, anyway, not just songs in a movie. And that was episode one of Star Wars was the one that really captivated that for me and made me think, oh, that's really cool. I want to know how they made that. I want to know how they added that. And from then on, it was every movie I watched, I was paying attention to those things.
That's awesome. So for context, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you saw
I was
Phantom
about
Menace?
10 years old. That was 99, 2000, right somewhere in there. And I was born 89, so right around 10 years old. I know that one, and what was the other movie that right around the first Harry Potter movie was another one that really did that for
Mm.
me. And it was right around that era, a
You were like
time.
right in that pocket. You were like in the perfect time for those things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And had you watched like the original Star Wars trilogy a
Yeah,
lot as a
I
kid
had
before
seen
that?
those. It's just, I don't know, they were more dad's thing.
Yeah.
And now I look back and those are my favorite of the movies, but like looking at them now. But at that time, it was like, oh, this is Dad's movie. Like this is cool. This is what Dad likes. But this isn't my thing. And the new Star Wars became my Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh, that's
uh,
awesome. So it was like ownership for you. That's awesome.
right.
Yeah, my dad also had the Star Wars trilogy on VHS. It came in like that box
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
And I remember like I never saw it as my dad's thing, but it was always like a thing that my dad let me borrow. Cuz like I had my
Okay.
movies kind of thing, like I had the kids movies
Yeah.
on the shelf that I was able to pick from and stuff, but every once in a while I would get to pick from the higher shelf. And one of the things on that was the Star Wars collection. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
I remember the day, well maybe not the day, but I definitely remember the grabbing the box set and like putting in the first one, A New Hope, for like the first time, which at the time on the VHS just said Star Wars. It didn't have A New Hope, so I had like the old kind of versions, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. I love that. And Dad even had the director's commentary versions, and we'd watch that together. I don't know why. I always was interested in hearing what George Lucas had to say talking through the movie, I guess. But yeah, I had the Star Wars prequels. He had the old ones. I had the new Justice League cartoon. He had Super Friends, and he was showing me those, that kind of thing. And so I think what really we got involved in at that time is, instead of me just saying, "Yeah, Dad, I love this. Yeah, Dad, I love this," I was like, "No, Dad, mine's better than yours." And it
Oh,
allowed a discourse. It allowed some actual conversation between the two of us, and then we were able to bond over that.
that's fascinating. So I want to get into that in just a second, but we do have some chat members in here. We got some channel members in the chat. We got Josh Jones, who was just gifted channel member from Dark Movies on the last Zach Millen Talks Live. What's going on, Josh? Thanks for joining us. Got Frankie Beastmaker in here saying hi. What's going on, Frankie? Glad you could make it. We got Dark Movies in here saying the biggest credit is to my mom. She got me into movies, and I most recently, around 4 to 6 years ago, she got me into horror movies like Conjuring, and that developed into slasher films. Honestly, I started a little bit thinking about movies around a year ago, but around 4 to 5 months ago, I started really to dissect movies and thinking about the film aspect. That's awesome, man. I mean, we all have our journey and our time, and I know that you're a younger guy too, so I'm pretty sure like around where you're at right now is where I was at when I started doing that too. So that's really awesome, man. So going back to your story, around 10 years old is when you see, would you say the prequels changed your life then in terms of your movie watching?
Wow, I've not thought of it like that, but yeah, for when it comes to movie watching and things, yeah, absolutely they did.
That's awesome, man. So you mentioned starting to say to your dad like mine is better than yours.
Uh,
Can you remember the first instance of that? Like, do you remember the first movie that you felt that way versus your dad's movie?
oh man, yeah. So I think Lethal Weapon 4. I remember getting into the conversation with Dad. He talked about, man, these sequels just aren't as good as the originals, and of course that went on with Star Wars and stuff too. But I remember the Lethal Weapon movies. I watched Lethal Weapon 4. I'm like, this is my favorite movie I've ever seen at that time. That's what was in my head. And
Right.
he said, this isn't even as good as the original. And we spent probably 2 hours discussing back and forth why this one's better, why this one's better. And he was right. But at the time, at the time, that was my first recency bias critiquing of a movie, I think, and that was definitely one of those big moments there.
Do you remember how old you were with that
I
first argument?
don't remember when that one came out.
Yeah.
I just remember the conversation.
That's fair, man. So as you go on this so 10 years old you see prequels, and then you start to develop a more love of the behind the scenes filmmaking. Um and that's kind of where movies changed for you, where you saw them as being products that were made by people behind the scenes, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How did that affect going forward how you viewed movies?
So it was really cool. That exact point in time is also when DVDs were coming out and getting going, early 2000s.
Right.
And the cool thing about the DVDs is they had the special features with all those behind the scenes stuff in them.
Oh yeah.
So I was getting into it just in time to get the exact stuff I needed to be able to watch those, and it was a different experience, not just watching a movie, but watching it and then dissecting it, and that has turned into where we all are on YouTube right now, doing that exact thing ourselves instead of hearing other people dissect things. But
This might be a really hard question to answer, but do you remember the first behind the scenes footage that you watched that was like kind of the first time you went, "Oh, this is what movie making is."
yeah, I mean, I vaguely remember some of that with those Star Wars commentaries on those VHSs, but I think X-Men or X-Men 2, the DVD on that had really great behind the scenes stuff. The Lord of the Rings had great behind the scenes things in their DVDs. A couple of those, it had to be some of that that I was watching, and I'm not sure. That's
Yeah,
tough,
no,
but
for
those are
sure.
the ones I remember that.
I mean, it's a tricky. I remember Stuart Little too.
Okay.
I don't know if that's like the very first special features I ever watched, but I remember specifically my dad going to the main menu of Stuart Little 2 and going to special features, and there was this whole um like featurette of the end where he flies the plane into the Falcon,
Hmm.
and they were talking about like the visual effects behind it all and how they
Yeah.
did that and kind of stuff. And that was kind of like my first like because I was the kid that thought they were behind the TV. Like I was
Yeah.
that guy. I was like, oh wow, how'd they get in there? Like I had no concept whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first time I ever got the concept of a set was actually I had the iCarly season 1 DVD back in like 2007,
Okay.
and they had special features on that, and they did a behind the scenes tour.
Yeah.
And I remember like finding out that the room, like the main room that the show takes place in, was just cut in half,
Yeah.
and then behind it was all these cameras. And I remember being like, whoa, they only make half the room. Like I was like, my mind was
Yeah.
blown. My mind was
That's
absolutely blown by that.
that's like the in that Lord of the Rings DVD special features section. They showed all the hobbits and they showed Gimli and how tall they actually were and how they changed the camera's perspective, to make them look smaller and different things in that. And seeing John Rhys Davies and play Gimli and how tall he actually, which I didn't at that time associate, he's the same guy from Indiana Jones. Uh,
Right.
I just saw him as the little short dwarf, and to know that he's actually probably the tallest guy on set, and then he was the dwarf it was cool to see that how they made that happen. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's super impressive. And that was a big part with my mom on movies is my mom and I loved watching trailers. My mom loved watching the trailers before the DVDs. She didn't like to skip them. And we loved watching the special features together. She didn't like get into the movies as much as I like. She would be like doing other stuff, or she didn't really like talk like, she was she is one of those people that are just like, because that's just what happened. Like if you try to question the movie, it's like, well, that's just what happened. Like, why are you asking the questions? We saw what
yeah.
happened. That is why it happened. So, that was definitely more on my dad's side. We could have those kind of discussions. But one of my favorite questions to ask to people
Okay.
about their journey with why they love movies, and we'll get to eventually like what made you then jump onto YouTube and talk about them. Uh, what do you remember the first movie that you watched where you realized, oh, movies can be bad? Like movies aren't always good.
Oh, I should have thought about this before. The first one that I felt that way about. Um, ooh, I don't want to leave too big of a pause on you here, but
It
this is
is
hard
it's
to.
tricky.
Hard
It's tricky.
to
Mine was Grown Ups too, which
Grown
was
ups too.
yeah, which was back
Okay.
in I think I want to say 2012, I think was Grown Ups too. I'm sure maybe there were movies before where I just kind of felt like I'm not going to gravitate towards that one very much. But I distinctly remember because I liked the first Grown Ups with Adam Sandler and Kevin James and David Spade and all that stuff. I liked that movie. But I remember watching Grown Ups too, being really excited for it. My family rented it. We sat down, we watched it. And I remember sitting there, and I remember the moment too. It was when David Spade gets into the tire and
Oh
rolls
yeah.
down the hill, and you got the CGI tire bouncing around. And up until that point, I was getting kind of bored. I wasn't really like as engaged with it, but I wasn't really connecting why. And then when that happened, I remember sitting there being like, "Oh, I don't like this. Like, I don't like this. Like, I just do not like this movie." And it was like the first kind of realization of like, this is bad to me. Like, I don't like what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. They were swinging for the fences on that. I did think of two,
All right.
and these were ones. I guess I didn't want to think of these at first because at the time they came out, all my friends were loving these two particular movies, and I jumped on that bandwagon and was like, "Yeah, I love this movie," but in my head, I knew better. And those were Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh,
Don't
that's a hot take,
don't
dude.
understand why people love Napoleon Dynamite. I hated that movie. I told everyone I loved that movie. I was lying. And I went back and tried to watch it again recently because my wife had never seen it. and we couldn't get through 10 minutes. We turned it off. But there was that one, and then another one all my friends loved that I wasn't honest about was Master of Disguise with Dana Carvey.
That's
a bad movie.
That is a movie. First of all, let's go to the other one, Napoleon Dynamite. I'm not on the exact same page. I don't even know if my wife knows this. She might kill me for saying this, but she loves Napoleon Dynamite. Like loves it. And I had seen it before and I watched it with her and I enjoy it up to a point. Like I feel like the shtick or whatever you want to call it of the movie gets really tired for me after like half an hour. Like I can get half an hour into the movie, maybe 40 minutes, and then I'm just kind of like, okay, is this done yet? Like we're like it doesn't feel like it goes anywhere. It doesn't feel like anything's happening, and I get kind of bored.
Pointless. Yeah.
But Master of Disguise, that's an interesting one too for me because my family loved Master of Disguise. Like
I still quote stuff from it. Don't get me wrong.
The Turtle Club. Not turtly enough for the Turtle Club. Like there's time to go on my shell. Yeah, there's tons of stuff that I remember from Master of Disguise because we just watched it all the time. And when he puts the underwear on his head, like I remember dying laughing at that at the end of the movie. And then I remember the day, I think I was probably 14, 15 years old, and I hadn't seen it for a long time, and was like, "Oh, Master of Disguise, love this movie," and I put it on. And it was like I was watching an entirely different movie. Like it wasn't even like the movie that I remembered. It was just I remember feeling like I don't like this anymore. This is so weird. Like this is a movie that my family quotes. This is a movie that that means a lot to my family.
Yeah.
And I'm not enjoying this now. And I haven't gone back to it since.
Yeah. And part of that may be as you've gotten older, you've paid more attention. And when you're younger watching something, you get more just swept up in it and you're not paying attention to the details, and which I think there are people around me in my circle that wish that I would not pay attention to details as much as I do.
Yeah, I'm in the same thing too. I mean, that's a good question to ask too. Like we are people who love movies, and we love movies in a way where we love dissecting them. We love how they're put together. We love looking at the structure, the plotting, the acting. We love looking at the cinematography, the direction, the screenplay, everything like that. Like I don't know about you, but like sometimes when I'm watching a movie, I can almost see the like screenplay written in front of me, and it's like, oh, interesting. Like I recently had that with Speed. I was watching Speed with my wife, and man, that movie, I mean, I think the ending is a little bit tacked on, but like the movie is just so smart because you can almost see the writers being like, okay, how do we top this? We've just gotten them into the city. What can happen next? Oh, what if there was a baby carriage that gets on the street and they hit it? Yeah. Oh, we can't kill babies. What if it was filled with cans and that would be like a surprise? Like the way that they just up it and up it and up it, you can almost see the screenplay being written in front of you, and I really love that. So my original question is like, has that been a hindrance to some of your relationships with? Because I know that like people like my sister, she doesn't want to watch movies with me because I'm just too critical in her words. So are there people that have come up in life like that where your love for movies have maybe hurt your relationship watching movies with them?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I'm here right now. People don't like talk, even if they watch them with me, they don't want to talk about them with me. I'll go to a movie with some friends, and a lot of times we don't talk about it much on the way home as much as I'd like to, because they're like, we had a good time, DJ. Don't ruin our good time. yeah, exactly. And I'm not trying to do that. I just, and there's movies I love, and I still have a lot of problems with the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just how I look at it.
No, I mean, like, I have to, like, with some people, it's like I have to get my thoughts out, but I can't have deep discussions. So I just, like, I step out of a movie and I'm like, yeah, I liked it. I mean, a little bit cliche, didn't really care for the romance, and this was a little bit that. But other than that, I liked the movie. And then they don't want to hear any of that. Like,
all of a sudden, you didn't like the movie anymore.
Yeah, right? All of a sudden, it's like, oh, you hated that movie. I didn't hate the movie.
I had that exact thing with No Way Home, and all of a sudden, I was the biggest No Way Home hater. Because I had critiques.
It is at number 6 out of 10 on your Spider-Man.
It is my number 6. but yeah, I have lots of friends and family who thought that was just the greatest movie ever made, and then I come out of it talking, yeah, I liked it, but I didn't like this, and why did they do this? And by the time we were done, now every time I hear, oh yeah, you didn't like No Way Home, it's like I never said that. So
We
get
got
that with a lot of them.
Screens and Reviews saying hi in the chat. What's going on, man? Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us.
Jason,
Jonah, who couldn't be here today, is also in the chat saying the Stuart Little series is highly underrated. I mean, I like the first two. When they did the cartoon third one, I wasn't. That's another one too. As a kid, that I was like, I'm not quite sure why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, but I'm not enjoying this movie. But I
yeah,
couldn't like pinpoint that it was a bad movie at that point. So I guess like going further on into your journey, I guess when you get into like your teenager years is where your love and obsession, I guess you can call it, for movies really began. And you mentioned before that there was something to do with movie rental places that
yeah.
really influenced that. Can you start
So
talking about that a little bit?
that's where that comes in. By the time I got to be a teenager, my dad was working on the road. He was a journeyman electrician. He traveled all over the country, work, whatever. He wasn't home a lot, as much as he was anyway. Sometimes in the summertime we'd go with him. Sometimes we'd be at home. But what my mom and my grandmother would do every Tuesday when new movies come out, they'd go and rent every one of them. And I won't say what they were doing to those DVDs so that we could have them forever. But they were they were getting every new release that come out, brought them home, and all that week, especially Tuesday nights, we'd watch the newest releases, and by the next week we'd have watched every new release that had come out and started fresh with all the new releases. That's A movies, B movies, C movies, Z movies. We didn't we didn't um, judge how good a movie was as far as whether we're going to rent it or not. We're going to rent it and watch it anyway. So I got to see all kinds of a wide variety of bad movies to good movies through probably from when I was 13 all the way till I got out of high school. That span was the most movies I've ever watched in my life. Until now, I might be doing more, but that was my teenage childhood years there in a nutshell. Is movies, movies, movies. We watched some shows, didn't miss a single movie all through those, and it made me great at movie trivia now.
Oh yeah, I bet. I was never one for board games. Like I never was really good with those kind of things.
Yeah,
But Seen It. Remember those? Remember
yeah,
those games?
yeah,
They had like Disney Seen It and just regular movie Seen It and
yeah.
Seen It. I have a couple Seen It games still to this day, and they were like the only board games I was ever good at with the family. I knew my stuff.
Wow. Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's talk a little bit because you're doing YouTube. Obviously, you're on here and you've got a channel. The link is in the description below, guys. Go give him some love and support. I want to talk a little bit about your YouTube journey. When
Uh-huh.
when did you when did okay? I want to go back to at what point in your movie loving journey did you discover that you could talk about movies on YouTube, and when did that develop for you into wanting to do this yourself?
Most of okay, so I never thought about doing it myself until just fairly recently. I watched a lot of YouTubers, movie talk YouTubers online, starting probably with John Campea, some of those guys, Christian Harloff, and I thought this is really cool. They get to do this for a living, you know, and then like more recent, the last couple of years, seeing other guys come along, seeing you show up on here and be honestly a little more personal than what some of those guys are. And I thought, this is really cool. They've got actual people asking them for their opinions, but nobody's ever going to ask me for my opinion, So I brushed it to the side, and then I keep seeing more and more people saying, "You guys got to do this yourself. You got to try this yourself. Get out there, talk to people, create your own channel. You got to do it. It's very rewarding, all that kind of thing." And I'm like, okay, okay. And then it hit me one day because I was in a conversation with some people close to me, and I realized they cared nothing about what I had to say. And it wasn't their fault. Just everything I'm saying completely bores them.
Right. Just not
And
into it the way you are.
they don't love movies like I do. They like going to the movies. They enjoy the time watching them, but I'm watching and they're not keeping up with all the MCU, so they're not can't have that conversation with me. They're not keeping up with the latest Star Wars stuff that's going on, so they're not having that conversation with me. Or they'll say, "Oh no, I haven't got a chance to watch that yet. Don't spoil it for me." And I'm like, "I can't even talk. It's been 3 months since that movie come out. And you don't want me to spoil it." So eventually, I thought, this is not the best time in my life. I have a 2-year-old son. I just bought a house. Uh, only a few years into a marriage. It's not time for me to do this, but I'm going to throw out just a couple of movie reviews just so I can talk about it. And even if I'm just talking to myself, I don't figure anybody will watch it. And I'm going to throw it on YouTube. And I filmed myself reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and I threw it on YouTube as a short.
That's your very first video.
That was my very first video.
Oh, wow.
And the amount of criticism I got for not hating that movie just completely overwhelmed me. And I thought, this is great. I love that people are just commenting back to me. I didn't care that it was negative. I just loved the idea that I was getting to talk about this and comment back, and we were having a conversation. And I never get that anywhere. So from that point on, I decided, hey, I'm going to take a little bit of time each week to put into this, and I'm going to go ahead and keep a channel going, and that's where I'm at now. Am I 5 months in now? Something like that.
That's awesome, man. And like
March,
already crossed the 100 subscriber mark. Like
hit 120 last night. Yeah.
That's amazing, dude. That's awesome. We've got Frankie Beastmaker in here saying that Stuart Little 2 is his favorite out of the 3 movies. Number 1 was really good. Number 3 was okay, but I don't understand why it's an anime age movie. Yeah, I don't understand why it's animated either. They probably just couldn't get the budget for the live action again.
Yeah,
Dark Movie says around 4 years ago, I watched 3C films and still watch them to this day. And around January of this year, I was thinking of doing it, but I started around 4 to 5 months ago. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm kind of similar in terms of the YouTube part with you, DJ. I mean, I remember I found going back to Grown Ups 2, actually going back, which is funny because I told the story with Zach Attacks Reviews, and he kind of pointed out that Grown Ups 2 is responsible for all this, and I'm kind of mad about that. But going back to Grown Ups 2, finished watching that movie, didn't really like it. I must have like put it on Facebook or something that I didn't like Grown Ups 2, because on YouTube on my homepage, because I had YouTube and I was signed into YouTube at the time, even though I was like 12 or 13 years old. Jeremy Johns popped up on my homepage, Jeremy Johns, and it was for Grown Ups 2, a Grown Ups 2 movie review. And it was the first time I'd even heard the words movie review. Like, I didn't know what that was. I just saw that this guy had Grown Ups 2 movie review. And I was like, interesting, what's this? And I clicked on it. And it was Jeremy Johns talking about Grown Ups 2. And he hated it. Like, he hated it. And he kind of like talked about it the way that I felt about it, but couldn't put it into words. Like, everything he said, I was like, yes, yes, yes. But he was also really funny. Like, he was really personable, and it just kind of felt like you were having a conversation with someone, or and he was saying what I wanted to say but didn't know how to say it. And then I just like binged him all that night of movies that I knew about. Like, I watched all of his like he had some, I think he had Star Wars reviews at that time, and I watched some other reviews of his, and I just like, it was the first time that someone was talking about movies the way I did in my head, kind of thing, and he was saying things that I was feeling and wanted to express. And then Jeremy Johns led to Chris Stuckman, and then Chris Stuckman was like where I really started to analyze movies, because Jeremy Johns was like the entertainment part of movies, like how entertained were you by the movie, and that's kind of what I gravitated towards. But Chris Stuckman kind of like broke my brain open to like, no, you can think deeper about movies, and you can go into like the screenwriting parts and this part and directing and all that stuff. And I learned a lot of that through watching featurettes and behind the scenes, and also watching Chris Stuckman videos and listening to him and stuff like that. And then that led into Collider at the time, which was John Campea and Christian Harloff and all of them were on at that time too. And then that led into Movie News. And I was like, there's a way to find out what's happening with movies before the movie happens. Like, that blew my mind right away. And I listened to those every day whenever they were on. And that led to the Schmoes Know and all this kind of stuff. So I was very kind of similar with you in that kind of way. But I never, especially at that age, I was like 13, 14 years old. I never wanted to do it myself. Like that was just terrifying. And I remember there were a couple times too, like when I got to be like 15, 16 years old, my dad would be like, "You should do a YouTube," because I just talked his ear off. Like every movie we went to, and every time we watched a movie, like I would just
Yeah.
talk his ear off. And he's like, "You got to do a YouTube channel. You should do a YouTube channel." And I was like, "No, I'm not. That's you put yourself out there. People hate you. It's not worth it. I do not want to
Yeah.
do that." And I even there was one time in probably the 10th grade I attempted to make a YouTube video. My sister gave me her camera. I set it up. I sat against this like white wall in my room, and I did the Avengers. I was like, let me try to do a movie review on the Avengers, and it was like terrible. Like I watched it back, and I was sitting like in this room, and I'm just like staring at this camera, and I was like, and the Hulk is like huge. Like you wonder how they get him that big. And I'm just like, I had like no personality. I had nothing to say. And I was like, this is not for me. I'm not doing this. But one thing that I did start to do was write my thoughts on Facebook for my friends and family. So after I saw a movie, I would go to Facebook and immediately write up like my review. And people really liked them. People really liked
Oh.
it. And
See, I tried that and nobody liked, commented anything when I did that
no,
on
nothing.
Facebook.
I
Nothing.
had I had very supportive friends and family. Even if they had no interest, they would give it a like at least. So that was nice. And when I got to middle school, when I was really starting to get into like my movie obsession, is when I started to meet some friends who also liked movies, but I kind of pushed them into talking about movies with me the way that I talked about movies. I even had one friend tell me one time that like I would never talk about movies this way if it wasn't for you because I want to be your friend and this is the only way to be your friend is if I can talk about movies like this. So that was really cool. But what ended up happening after high school was those friends that I like, you lose touch with people, and a core group of them that I would go to movies with and talk about movies with, they moved away. And I
Okay.
kind of was starting to feel like how you were kind of describing it before too, where it's like I had this craving to discuss movies and I was not finding it. Like I just didn't
Yeah.
have that in my life. Like I was listening to YouTube videos, I was listening to other people talk, but I wasn't talking with them. And eventually that started to be like annoying that I couldn't engage. And
Don't
so
don't get me wrong. My wife, bless her heart, she tries and she tried.
yeah,
She just
mine too.
and I think that's why she's so supportive of this YouTube channel because it has stopped me from bugging her so much. But anyway, go ahead. I just
Yeah,
just
no,
say my wife
my,
did try.
my wife likes movies almost as much as I do. But she definitely was not into like the discussion part of movies like we are. And she's trying. She's trying to learn, and she's actually brought in some really good insights and stuff sometimes, and I'm like, "Wow, really?" And she's like, "Just thinking like you." It's fun. It's pretty cool. But
That's why you
yeah,
call them really good insights, right? Because she said she's thinking like you.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's why they're really good, is because she's thinking like me. Great minds think alike, and she should be happy that she got mine. Um, so, um, for like my YouTube start was back in 2019 because that was the year my friends hadn't moved away yet, but we were definitely starting to like lose touch. They were going to school. I wasn't going to school. We had different schedules, and they were planning on moving away. So I kind of knew that this was going to be like a thing that I was going to be. I went to movies alone a lot in 2019. Um,
Mm.
and it was after Glass. I watched Glass, and it was like 12:30 in the morning, and I was sitting outside of the parking lot in my truck, and I was trying to write up my Facebook review for Glass, and it was just too long. Like I had too much that I wanted to say about this movie. It was kind of like really, I had a lot to think about with this movie, and so I decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Everyone's asleep. I'm just gonna shoot a video. I'm gonna post it. I'm not gonna say anything, and I'm gonna go to bed. And maybe I'll delete it in the morning. So I shot this video in my truck, like terrible lighting. It's so dark. There's so many shadows on my face. I say way too many times, even more than I do today.
Yeah.
And I shot it. I took a screenshot of it, and on the thumbnail, like I still have the original thumbnail up and everything. You can see because I took a thumbnail from a screenshot off the phone, so you can see the time at the top and my energy bar and everything for the phone, and it's just posted that way still to this day. So it's like 1 in the morning, and I ended up getting like really good responses the next day. Like first of all, it was way too much of like a this seems too easy type thing because it already had 100 views, and I
Yeah.
was like, wow, I already have 100 views. That's awesome. And they were so supportive, and I had tons of comments, mostly from friends and family that had found it. And I decided to share it to Facebook, and that got even more traction.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, I think I'm gonna try this thing. And here we are. Here we are. But it is those initial steps that are really cool. So, I mean, you've mentioned that you have a son, right?
Yes.
Yes. And is he
2 year old.
around the time where you're showing him some movies now?
Starting to. He's still right now just really into like Blippi, um,
Yeah.
but and Blue's Clues and Peppa Pig, those kind of things. But like we did show the new Ninja Turtles movie to him recently. We showed the
Nice.
Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken movie, couple other things like that to him recently, and Toy Story, a few of those Disney movies like that we've shown. And he will watch a few minutes here and there, go and do his own thing, come back and watch again, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like, it's really cool to see. We go through the store after his birthday a couple months ago. He had some birthday money saved up, and we went to the store the other day, and he picked out Ninja Turtles toys because he recognized them from watching the movie, you know. And so he's home playing with the Ninja Turtles toys. The mask that I had in my video was from one of his toys, and it's cool to see that he's picking up on some of the stuff that we're showing him on TV. I do have family members that are like, don't show him too much TV, he's too young, you know. But
Yeah.
you know,
Can't help it.
we're starting. He's finally starting to get old enough he can watch some of the animated stuff anyway, that kind of thing. So
That's really awesome. Like that's one of the things like I've always thought about like when I become a dad, when I have a kid, like I
yeah.
cannot wait to just like show them, and hopefully they're into movies and not books like my wife wants them to be. I told,
I'd be okay with both. I'd be
I'm
okay.
like I'm like if you put a book in his hand, I'm slipping an iPad down the page and he's gonna be watching Star Wars instead. So we'll figure that out when we get there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
that's
ready
one
for
of
him
the
to get
things.
a little bit older so he can start going to the movies with me to watch those that my wife don't want to
Yeah.
watch with me. So
Yeah. No, I can't wait to have a kid and show the movies and stuff. But like my question to you right now is like what's a movie that like is just so dear to you that you cannot wait to show him?
um, when he gets old enough, Dead Poet Society. That's my favorite all time movie,
That's a
and
good
I
one.
want to show him peak Robin Williams because that's my favorite all time actor. So that's the one.
That's fantastic, man. That's a really good one. So, I think we're just gonna have a little bit of a shorter show today. You're the only guest, so welcome to DJ Talks Live, everybody. No, this was great, but we do have people in the chat that were here, so thank you guys for being here as well. Um, Frankie asked, "What's our favorite movie from the last 10 years?" I don't know if do you have an answer for that in the last 10 years. So that's 2013 to 2023.
I
I
don't.
mean,
I'm thinking offhand.
one that I love is Baby Driver. I wouldn't say that that's my favorite from the last 10 years, but that's definitely one that I love from like 2017. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that that would take more time than I think I've got to
No
figure
worries, man. And he also he's asking 2022, but I think he meant 2023. What's your most disappointing movie of this year so far?
um, somewhere between Asteroid City and Oppenheimer.
Whoa, for disappointed?
Yes,
You were disappointed with Oppenheimer.
I was. I enjoyed the movie. It was not what I thought it was going to be.
Okay, interesting. I still haven't seen it. I've heard
Yeah,
nothing but
but good.
rave things,
Yep. Yep.
and
So
I'm looking forward to it. I think it comes out on digital pretty soon, probably within the next 2 weeks. I think it's supposed to come out. So
hope you like it
definitely,
more than I did. I enjoyed it. I don't know. I was just let down. I love Christopher Nolan movies, and this wasn't it for me. So
That's totally fair. I mean, that's what I love about. I mean, talking about the topic. I mean, that's one of the things I love about movies too, is the fact that, we can go into the same room and have
Yeah,
the same thing projected on the screen and see the exact same images and come out feeling the same way and high fiving and having a good time, or we can come out feeling completely opposite to each other.
yeah.
One of the, oh, sorry, what we saying?
And that movie did everything right. It great acting, great story, great direction. I just wasn't having fun with it, and I almost fell asleep 3 times in the theater. So
Wow. All right, man. Well, I mean, that's like, look, that's fair. Like, that is your
I
experience.
could
Like,
see all the good things that everybody talks about in that movie. I just didn't enjoy it.
I'm looking forward to checking it out myself. But one of the prime examples that I always go to about that, about the different like experiences with movies. I remember going to see Venom, the first Tom Hardy Venom.
Yeah,
did you see that one? Did you like that one?
yeah, yeah. I enjoyed that one, the
You
first
enjoyed
one.
that one. Okay, perfect. So this will be good then. Because I was sitting there, I was watching Venom, and I was with my friend, and we're sitting there, and we haven't said a word to each other the entire time. And we're sitting there, and I'm watching it, and I'm not enjoying it. Like, I'm not enjoying this movie very much at all. And we get to the final battle. We get to the final confrontation between, I think it was Riot was his name, and
Yeah,
Venom.
yeah.
And to me on screen, it was just these gray colors mushing together. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, and in my mind, I go, this movie is awful. And as I sit there and think this movie was awful, my friend leans over to me at the exact same moment and goes, "This movie's so freaking awesome." And I just remember being like, "Oh, we are gonna have a discussion in the car tonight," because like I am not feeling that way at all. And I just think that's just so cool. That's just so cool that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happens with
It
movies.
hits us different ways, and we just need to all respect each other for those different opinions, because you're not always going to love everything everyone else does, and you're going to hate things other people love. So you can't.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, I think we might do a part two to this as well. Why we love movies, so that we can get some more people telling their stories. Because I love this. Like, I love hearing people's stories,
Yeah,
where their origin for loving movies comes from, and why they're doing YouTube today. We're talking about movies. Like, this is just so much fun to me. So I appreciate you being here today,
you
DJ.
bet.
Thank you so much for joining me. And please tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, I am DJ with Movie Time Minute. You can find me on YouTube, Movie Time Minute. I'm also on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and probably somewhere else. I have a Discord channel as well that you're welcome to join, where we just talk about different movies coming out and things. So those are the places you can find me.
Amazing, man. And yeah, guys, like I said, his link in the description below. Tap on his name, head on over there. And he's a great guy, really fun. I loved your Ninja Turtle short pointed to your review.
Yeah,
That was
somebody
my
told me to get a
favorite.
laugh in that, and I thought, yeah, well, I mean, you're the one watching this right now, so
That is a great response. That is a great response. So yeah, I love that video. Guys, go check it out. Go check him out. And the question goes to you guys now. Keep the conversation going in the comments below. Why do you love movies? What got you into movies? What's the first movie you ever saw? What one made you realize movies can be bad? Why do you have a YouTube channel today if you've got one? Comment down below and let us know.